Yeah, so we're going to be talking about chainsaw-resistant products. We're going to be talking about different manufacturers of products, different types of products versus a tech fiber versus a bulk fiber. And also kind of looking at the theory that electric saws will cut through chainsaw protection. I've done a lot of testing with Clogger on this, as well as Arborware about this exact thing, and we're going to talk about that. But I'm not going to just dive right into that, because if I dove right into that, then I'll lose the rest of the crowd for the rest of the time. So first we're going to talk about why we wear chainsaw protection. All right? Big myth out there is that if you wear chainsaw protection like I have on, if I get cut, I can walk away. Hopefully I can. But the biggest difference is I wear chainsaw protection so that I can have a Band-Aid to fix my problem versus stitches or worse, death, right? So I have big arteries about the size of my thumb that run right on the inside of my legs, right? We call it a femoral artery, right? If I cut my femoral artery with a chainsaw, I'm going to bleed out in about 3.5 to 4 minutes, all right? So for me, chainsaw protection aloft is a big deal. So I wear chainsaw protection aloft. All my guys wear chainsaw protection aloft. And the reason being is if we have an incident, I want protection when I'm up in the tree. Because 3.5 minutes is going to go by really quick if I'm in a tree and I have to get to the ground and hopefully get my blood stopped from bleeding and squirting all over the place, right? We don't want to catch up everywhere. So that's why we wear chainsaw protection. It's not because I'm going to end up with not having to go to the hospital. You might still have to go to the hospital. If I had, say, a Steel 440 here, or the biggest chainsaw Echo makes, or the biggest chainsaw Husqvarna makes, or whatever, I'm going to eat through these pants. It's not going to stop it. Okay, I'm going to tell you, it won't stop it. But what it will do, it'll slow down the chain speed enough that the damage done to the leg is going to be minimal. All right, it is going to go through though. All right, but today's demonstration, you're going to watch how a product actually stops. So this product here, the Clogger Zero Pant, it's a 7-layer pant, meaning it's got 7 layers of protection between the skin and the outside area. Then also you've got the cover over top of that. The cover is not chainsaw protection. All the chainsaw protection is built into the fiber weave underneath. Their fiber they use is a Kevlar blend fiber. It's actually a tech fiber. So it's got Technora in there. It's got a little bit of Cora, and it's also made of Kevlar. It's a high-tech fiber. The theory of it, anybody ever seen the movie Top Gun? Remember the movie Top Gun? It's like my favorite movie as a kid, right? Plane comes in and hits the wire and stops. That's what this is going to do, right? The tech fiber is going to act that way. It's going to act and grab that chisel of the chain and slow the chain down and eventually stop the chain. The Arborware chaps here, the rack chaps, they use a bulk style material. It's a batting material, right? The whole theory on it is I'm going to grab a whole bunch of fibers and I'm going to jam it into the sprocket. And I'm going to stop the sprocket from turning by just filling it full of stuff. So we have a batting style that clogs the sprocket, and then we have the Clogger brand that actually just stops the chain from spinning, right? And you're going to see both those when I cut into it, what it does to the fibers. They're both a 7-layer fiber. They're both a 7-layer weave, and the weave runs from the very bottom of the chap all the way to the top. Why is that important? So I see a lot of workers that buy chaps or they buy chainsaw protection, and they get nicked. They get nicked with briars. They get nicked with hand saws. They get nicked from chainsaws just walking around and running across there. And it might pick a fiber or two. What happens when you pick that fiber runs all the way down. When I pick it up, I've now shortened that fiber up. Like that aircraft carrier in Top Gun, I need that entire length of wire to slow my plane down. If I've shortened that fiber up by pulling it out and then clipping it off, now I don't have as much distance, right? And that's going to let the chain go in further into the pant. In testing, we have found we get to about 3 or 4 layers through these pants. I have yet to get to layer 7. Hopefully we won't get to layer 7 today, but I've never gotten there yet. So I know from history, I can do a thing, we can cut it. Now, I've seen the YouTube channels, I've seen the YouTube videos that do people doing the backyard testing on this. We're going to talk about the backyard testing and why you should or should not do this. So I see people that get a piece of wood like this, they take a pair of chaps and they duct tape it to the wood, right? As tight as they can get it. Then they go grab a chainsaw, rev it all up, and they take that chainsaw and they bury it. And then they hold the trigger and they keep on going. All right. First of all, if you sink a chainsaw into your leg and you continue to hold the trigger down and keep pushing, you and I need to have a different conversation, all right? Because if I cut myself, my first reaction is going to be, whoo, I'm going to stop. The other problem is I actually need soft material like tissue, muscle, and blood for the chap to work, for the chap material to work. So here, my hotel I'm staying at, thank you TCI, has graciously donated a towel for me to use. I was going to use a handful of like red jelly. TCI thought maybe a little, like, make kids squeamish, you know, blood flying everywhere, so we cut that out. But what this simulates here is it simulates actual tissue, so I can push down on it. What happens when that chap material bends in, I grab more fibers. So as that wraps around the chain, I'm going to grab more fibers. So in the backyard testing, when people do this, they blow through the chaps, they're like, so that's why I don't wear chainsaw protection right there. It doesn't do anything. All right. First of all, you're not using it correctly. You're not doing the testing correctly. Also, in the testing, In order for it to meet the standards, it's a 6-inch drop. So if I have my chainsaw here, I'm not doing my testing from here. All right? It's a 6-inch decelerated stop, meaning I'm full trigger, let off the trigger, and drop. And that's what we're going to demonstrate today. That is the way chainsaw manufacturers test their saws with chainsaw protection. It's the same way chainsaw protection tests it with the saws. Right? So there's a standard on how that has to be done. Now, we understand some saws on the market run at about 4,400 revolutions a minute. Right? High chain speeds. Our material is good for about 2,700 revolutions per minute. So you're probably thinking to yourself right now, well, that's a big difference. It is. We understand that. That's why I'm saying the fact of the matter is you may have penetration of the chain through all layers and end up with a scrape, maybe a cut that requires a butterfly bandage, but you're not going to end up with a gouge that goes to my femoral artery where I'm going to die. Right? So that's why we do the chainsaw protection. That's why chainsaw protection is so important. I also have the wonderful honor of working on the Z133 committee that writes the standards for our industry. Right? It's one of the great honors that I get a chance to do. We have talked a lot about chainsaw protection aloft, right? And why other countries around the world require it aloft, and our industry in the United States does not. Hopefully that's going to change in time. The reason we haven't done it is we don't have enough data to support us needing chainsaw protection aloft, because where's the majority of our injuries when we use a chainsaw up in trees? Left arms. Why is it left arms? Because people do this, right? Because I can, it's so light, and it begs for me to hold it with one hand, right? It's not a one-handed chainsaw. There is not one handle. There is two handles for a reason. If it was a one-handed chainsaw, there'd be a trigger on this handle and a trigger on this handle, right? It's not designed that way. There is no such thing as a one-handed chainsaw. They're not designed that way. They're designed to be run with two hands. So we know that data supports in our industry right now, if we were to require chainsaw protection aloft, we should require it on everybody's left arms, right? They should only have to wear a sleeve on your left arm, and we can stop chainsaw injuries aloft, right? We know the bigger issue for us, especially in the southern states, is heat. Heat-related emergencies from heavy material on your femoral artery. So that's how your body cools down, right? It circulates blood through the body. Well, if I'm wrapping my biggest arteries in insulation, my blood can't cool off as fast. So we saw that early on when chainsaw protection, especially the pants, started making their way in the market. Everybody remembers back about 6-7 years ago when chainsaw pants first really started becoming mainstream. They were like wearing snowboard pants. They were super thick, super heavy. I have a pair of old Husqvarna Tech pants that I swear are actually thicker than my Burton snowboard pants, all right? But now we've got these new tech fibers on the market. They're getting lighter and thinner, and we're going to continue to see that progress. I love cloggers. I love the brand. I love the Arborwear, Ironwood pants, same thing. The difference is the weight of the pant and the material inside. So when you make your decisions for your chainsaw protection, look at the climate you're going to work in. I'm out of New Hampshire, right? So we have workers in New Hampshire and Vermont. So in the summer, my guys love wearing Clogger Zeros. They're really lightweight. They breathe really well. However, in the winter, all my guys switch over to Ironwoods because they're a little bit thicker material. They're a little bit warmer, right? So make sure you buy right chainsaw protection for the environment in which you work in, right? So that's kind of where we're at with why we have chainsaw protection and why we wear it. The other thing we're going to talk about chaps. Now, we're not going to get into the personal opinions on chaps versus pants, all right? For guys out of my office, we don't have any chaps. We're pants only. Two reasons. One, I know you came to work with pants on, so I know you're wearing chainsaw protection. So I don't have to worry myself the day that you're not following the standard and not wearing it. Also, we found that guys and girls weren't really washing these as often as they should. Anybody ever open that chainsaw compartment of a truck up, right? And you see a pair of chaps laying there that were probably orange at one time that are now brown, right? These are supposed to be washed. The reason, especially this style chap is supposed to be washed, the bulk style material needs to be fluffed. So when you wash something, it goes in the wash cycle, and it runs around and then it runs around in there, and then we dry it, it puffs it back out. If these just sit in a truck, and they're folded up all nice and tight like, and we use them every day and sweat on them, and bar oil gets in them and all that material inside there gets matted down and matted down and matted down. We've done testing on chaps that have been in service for a long time, and we're able to get all the way through all the layers because of that reason. They don't have that big fluffy batting. So the other problem it was, well, my guys and girls are never washing their chaps. Well, therefore, if you wear them, you're more likely to wash them. And if you don't wash your pants, eventually peer pressure is going to take over because you're the stinky worker, and people are going to wash them for you, and you're probably going to be wearing them when they do it, right, on truck wash day. We're going to make it happen, right? So we need to make sure we take care of our pants. We also need to make sure that we wear our chaps correctly. I see way too many people who put chaps on, and they do this. If I can not click the mic back, that would be great. All right, I got my chaps on, I'm good, right? I got my chainsaw protection on. If I cut into these right now, just like this, what's going to happen is this chain catches, this whole thing's going to move. Now I don't have protection. Now I've just exposed my entire leg to whatever damage is going to occur. So we need to make sure our protection is fully clipped all the way around, all the way down. The other thing we want to make sure is that they're the right length. I have seen some workers who wear chaps that I swear are like this, right? Kind of defeats the purpose, right? If my legs are exposed, it's not going to work. Same thing if they're sagged way down and I'm wearing them saggy style, and they're flopping off my feet like this, like I'm a cowboy. That's not going to work either, right? So they need to be the right size. Chaps are not a one-size-fits-most thing. They come in sizes for a reason. So make sure when you're getting the chaps, you're making them the right size. I see varying heights in the crowd, right? Well, if you're 5 feet tall and the person next to you is 6 feet tall, you're not going to wear the same chaps, right? So having one pair of chaps per truck isn't going to work for you, right? So again, it kind of pushes back to where I see our industry headed, which is wearing pants and moving away from chaps maybe in the future. But right now, we still like chaps. Nothing wrong with chaps. Also, we have different kinds of chaps on the market. We've got wrap chaps that actually come around the back of the leg. These pants here have a wrap on the backside. I have chainsaw protection here from all the way here, all the way around. Also, the way we wear our chainsaw pants versus chaps, the actual padding is built in differently. So on these Ascends here, I have chainsaw protection that starts here and goes all the way to the inside of my thigh here. Conversely, on these pants, I've got the chainsaw protection that starts here and comes all the way around to this side. It's different because we know when we run chainsaws, there are no left-handed chainsaws, right? So all you mutants out there that are left-handed, they don't make a chainsaw for you. They're all right-handed saws. If I cut myself like this, I'm going to be pulling more material into the bar to get hung up. Versus cutting here, I'm pulling more material from the backside, right? If they were the same on both sides and I cut this way, I'm going to run out of chainsaw material to stop the chain. I'm going to end up getting into my legs. So these come around further on the inside of the thigh, right? Again, it's all in how they're built and they're designed that way. The zeros are the same way. So when you're looking through your chainsaw protection, you really want to take into effect what kind of saws you're running, right? There's different class and levels of chainsaw protection, right? Are you running all pruning saws? Like, for instance, are we running all nothing but Echo battery-powered saws? Is that the only saw we're going to run? You probably can get away with a lower class rating chainsaw chap, right? But if you're running big saws, you're going to need bigger protection. So make sure you get the right protection to fit the saws you run, and then make sure the climate you work in is going to be the same for the material you're wearing, because that's great that if I'm protecting my legs from getting cut, that's wonderful. But if I'm creating another hazard by heat exhaustion, we have a bigger problem on our hands, right? We don't want to exchange one problem for another. We want to find solutions for everything. So we're starting to see more and more material change. We're starting to see more things come on the market. I think we're going to continue to see this evolve, right? So real quick, while I'm on the topic of chainsaws, before I do the fun stuff of cutting things, and I'm going to get there, I promise. I'm stringing you along. I know, but I'm going to get there, all right? Let's go back to this real quick, all right? Just because it's a personal soapbox of mine, this. All right? Our industry does not allow you to one-hand a saw. All right? It is not allowed in our industry. All right? It is against the rules. We have to use two hands on a saw for a reason. Saw kickback is controlled with two hands. All right? I cannot cut my left arm if my left arm is attached. All right? We see way too many injuries occur from people holding on with one and doing this other. Now, when I started in this industry 20 years ago, I learned how to do tree work all wrong. All right? I learned how to do tree work by you bear hug the tree with spikes on, you spike everything. My pruning spikes and my removal spikes were the same spikes, okay? Spiked everything, lanyarded it in, and then just cut. That's the way I was taught. So yeah, I one-handed the saw for many, many years. What I have found now in my older age, I won't say how old I am, I cannot sleep with my left arm above my head. Because if I do, I wake up in the morning and I can't move my left arm because I've tore my rotator cuff from all the time of cutting and throwing behind me out of trees, right? Because that's the fast way to work. So now when I cut and throw, I have blown all the cartilage and my rotator cuff out. I eventually had to have shoulder surgery at some point. I'm just delaying it as long as possible so I can keep fishing and playing golf, all right? But it's going to happen. So we have those things that go into it. That's one reason why we don't do it. Some people say, oh, but Travis, I can reach so much further if I one-hand a saw. Pay attention. Don't blink. My arm, I'm exactly square, so 3 feet from the tip of my finger to the center of my chest. It doesn't change. My arm does not grow. I am not Gumby. Just because I one-hand a saw doesn't mean I can reach further. What you're really saying when you say you can reach further by one-handing a saw is because you're using body positioning to hold your rope over here and lean, right? If you were here for some of the other sessions that these other instructors were talking about was using your tools properly, using your lanyards, using your climbing systems, adapting your lanyards and your climbing systems together to triangulate your position so I can do the exact same lean and use two hands on the saw. So it's really not about using one hand on a saw as much as using the right components and knowing how to use the components correctly to maintain two hands on a saw at all time. If you really want to change, and you can change, because I did, all right? I was the guy that had the no shirt on, hat backwards, one-handed everything for like 7 years, all right? But I actually got rid of all my top handle chainsaws and went to rear handle only for a year. Only ran rear handle saws. And yeah, I understand there's some muscles out there like, yeah, I can one-hand a rear handle saw. They tell you, it wears on you, right? So you have to develop that muscle memory, and it changes the way you climb. So if you really want to adapt and go to the next level, I highly encourage you to start trying to get to a rear handle saw to change your habits, change your climbing style, and then when you go back to the ergonomic saw design of a top handle, because that's really what is the benefit to a top handle. It's ergonomic. I can work close to the body. I can work right in here and don't have that rear handle behind me. It's not about this as much as it is ergonomics, right? So that's really why we look at saws and how we look at saws. Any questions before I cut them? Cool, great, I love it. Cut it. Yeah, cut it. Side note, I hope this works. All right, so what we have here is we have our Clogger Zero. It's attached with nice, good strapping. We need it somewhat tight, like it's in a leg, right? We've got our padding in here. It's about 3 inches of padding. They want you to use foam as well. Obviously, I don't have any foam to use, so we just use the towel, and that's going to work just fine, right? What we're going to do is we're going to come from a 6-inch drop right here. I'm going to be full rev. I'm going to drop the saw, and the fingers come off the trigger, and we're just going to watch what happens. Is everybody okay with that? Anybody have any issues with that? Great. Awesome. If you did, you just didn't say them. All right, here we go. So what this is that tech fiber we talked about right here. Okay? This tech fiber did exactly what the tech fiber is supposed to do. It's that string on the aircraft carrier that catches. It stops our plane, right? Exact same thing happened, right? So as I open these up here, I can see I got the first layer cut, got a little bit there, a little bit into the second layer inside, all right? And that's it, all right? So it worked just like it's supposed to work. That's how a tech fiber is designed to work. We have the batting style, right? So we saw the tech fiber, and now we're going to take a look at the batting style. All right? Same exact thing, 6-inch drop, falling into it, right? We're not going to plunge it. We're not going to keep accelerating down, right? I know you're having a hard time hearing me. There we go. Because if I keep pushing, yeah, it's going to keep cutting, especially the electric saws. Electric saws have a lot of torque in them. If I keep on my trigger and I keep pushing, it's going to keep going. But who's going to do that? Please tell me who's going to go, ooh, look, my leg, and just keep on going. It's not going to happen, all right? So we got to be realistic with these tests. All right, so here we go. All right. So you can see the difference in the material right there. So you can see here in the batting style, right? It's a very different fiber. So we have 1 layer, 2 layers. We got down to the 3rd layer, all right? But you can see the difference in just looking at how it does this, all right? That's that batting style material that's going to clog the sprocket and sink the saw and stop it, right? It's going to stop the chain from turning by just clogging the sprocket with all this wonderful horsehair-like material, all right? Versus the tech fibers just pulls in these strings. So you can see from the weave here, and you guys can come up closer if you want to later, you can see in the weave pattern here, it's got a larger individual strand that's acting as that ripcord or that shock line, right? So we're actually grabbing these and we're pulling these. And that's the difference in stopping the chain speed. One of them is going to bat up and clog the sprocket. One's going to grab that chisel and just hold back and stop it, right? So that's how it works. That's how chainsaw protection works. And as you can see, even electric saws works, right? It's been a misnomer we've heard in the industry for a long time. Oh, they're not rated for electric saws. You're right. There is not a rating out there yet for electric saws on chainsaw protection. No, there is not. They're working on it, but right now we can prove that with the new fibers on the market in the last 5 years, they do work for what we're using, right? But again, it's how we do our tests. So when you're online doing YouTube, looking around, and you find the backyard testing, pay attention to that. Pay attention to how it's set up, all right? I highly encourage you to do your own research. Don't do it on a backyard test, though. You know, get with companies like Clogger, Arborware, Stein, SIP, all those companies that make chainsaw protection. Steel, Husqvarna, they make chainsaw protection as well. Talk to them about how the testing they've done, how they've done it. again, if I take that chainsaw and I bury it, we're going to have a different outcome. But nobody's going to do that in real testing. Thank you so much. Thank you, Echo, for letting me use your saw. I greatly appreciate it. And it was awesome. I loved it.